Yes. We could be, let's go to the. Who else knows from that little voice that we are going?
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the December Executive Committee. My name is Jessica Chake, and I'm pleased to call this meeting to order. As you know, we have a hybrid meeting policy with members of the public and press invited to join remotely. And per our open meetings law, full board members are expected to attend in person, as you all know, unless you have a disability and or extraordinary circumstance as defined by New York State open meetings law. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually, and board members who are joining Zoom, we ask that they leave their cameras on. Our hybrid policy can be found on our website, and this will be streamed on YouTube live for people to view now and into the future. Tonight we have a very slim agenda, and I want to thank you all so much for accommodating both this schedule change. Next week felt very tight with all the holidays, and I know I myself wasn't going to be available, so thank you for those who were able to accommodate the schedule change and be here tonight. And with such a limited agenda where we actually don't even have anything to vote, that you came anyway. So I brought some cookies to say thank you and hopefully make this a little less painful. As Jesse alluded, you better open them now because we don't expect tonight to be very long. But they're all right. Don't ever ask twice, right? I usually like to bring a healthy option when it's the holidays. But I really felt it was important that we have the opportunity to convene because we do have so many big topics that have worked their way through the board process or are working their way through. We didn't have exec last month because we similarly didn't have items on the agenda in the proximity to Thanksgiving, and it just felt it would be too long to wait until January in these 2 months. So I hope you all will, indulge me and Jesse on thinking that it was valuable to get together. The camera is too violently for it to be on you.
A few more years, I think it's gonna reach out and
Before we get to the updates and the discussion, we did want to resume this practice that we started at the last exec in October about hearing from committees about what they're working on and what their plans are as they think about the year ahead. We had to accommodate various schedules, and so tonight we just have one committee reporting out. That's ACES, and really appreciative of Josephine and Matt for being willing to present. I will just say, I mean, this was my idea, so people were not shy to say it went well if they wanted to be nice to me, but they said that they enjoyed hearing last month, 2 months ago's reports. And so I'm hoping that next month we'll have both land use committees present, and then we'll move to housing and perhaps cannabis if that feels necessary or appropriate. But really, this is an opportunity for us to continue to learn and feel connected to what the priorities of the committee and our board more broadly is. So with that, I'll turn it to you guys.
Okay, sure. So by the way, this is my daughter, Aiko. And she.
This is part of the committee work.
Yes, Kristen, you're so right. Aiko began her schooling right at Midtown West on West 48th Street, and she's now at Vassar College. So enjoying her first freshman year. So this is the result of a public school education, and so couldn't have been a better night for her to be here. She's back visiting for Christmas holiday.
Great.
So yeah, so in CB4 we have 5 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 20 high schools. And our proficiency levels are higher than the citywide average, at about 76 for ELA and 78 for math. Midtown West actually was spotlighted by D2 leadership for their excellent parent engagement. I think when they send out their parent surveys, they get like a 99% response rate, which is incredible, and for their reading program. And also Lab Middle School was awarded a National Blue Ribbon in 2024, which is for their outstanding achievement. So we really have some great schools in our district. We also, as you know, we are dealing with a very large population of students in temporary housing. We had about 600 plus in our elementary schools. So our teachers and our school leadership has been great in welcoming all the students, and like at PS 11 and PS 33, they have closets where kids can come and take clothing and toiletries. They have clothing drives. At her old school, PS 212, they actually opened the gym early so kids can come upstairs and run around, because you can imagine being a young child and trapped in a hotel room for months at a time. It's very difficult, so kids can go up there and, you know, have some fun. At PS 111, where Matt's son is going to school, they have Thanksgiving dinner every year for the family, so everyone is trying to do their part. We do have Vanderbilt University that has moved into the GTS campus, and Jessica put us on a call with their team that is sort of overseeing what's going to be happening at the campus, and they haven't made a decision on their academic programming. But they were very interested in this teacher-student learning initiative that I partnered with Leslie on many years ago to bring more student teachers into our schools. So they even, you know, followed up with an email and wanted to find out more information. So that honestly would be like a dream to have Vanderbilt University partner with a couple of our elementary schools.
Can you remind us what is the student teacher program, because I don't.
Yeah.
Right.
So when someone is trying to get their master's degree in education, they have to put so many hours into the school. So they go into the school and they work under a licensed teacher. And that's part of the hour. So it's a little bit more work for the teachers and the principals. They have to fill out paperwork, but it's a great opportunity for the students. And of course, anybody that comes to this district to work will just see everything. I mean, you have kids of all different backgrounds, all different languages. And so they're really curious about it. And I'm hoping that it turns into something. So we'll see. Yeah. And I think it's also a way of just getting, you know, we have a lot of corporations and a lot of organizations that come and move into our community, but they don't actually, they're not really involved in the community. So I think that this would be a great way for someone to actually be really involved with the schools and just the community in general. So hoping for that. The needs continue to be, we need to have free after school for every elementary school child. There is free after school in the middle schools, but for our elementary schools, it's just paramount. And it's not like just babysitting, like it's homework help, it's arts, it's socialization with the other kids. So that's something that we continue to advocate for. We do have to meet the new class size mandate, and I think at most schools we're on track. Some of our schools are co-located, and that's gonna be a bit of a problem, but we're gonna have meetings with SCA and see how they're gonna figure that out. Some of the things that I am very concerned about, number one is PS 33 in this, where they're located. Of course, we're talking about the redevelopment of NYCHA possibly. And as Carrie put it, this is going to affect 3 generations of elementary school kids. And we're talking a 15-year project. The air quality, the sound, I imagine they're netting over the school, they may lose their yard. And as far as I know, the developers have not had a face-to-face conversation with the school leadership or the families. So this is something that I really want to push. And I know that, you know, Carrie's working on that, getting a meeting set up where families can ask questions. Because a lot's going to be going on, and we really need to get ahead of it. So yeah, that's about all that we have, I think, so far for education. Those are the big top points.
Great, thanks, Josephine. And then, so education remains one of our committee's like major priorities, but another part of our work is working with arts and cultural groups in the district, which we have many of. So just a few little updates. We've had a number of nonprofit organizations come to our monthly meetings. Funding always remains like a #1 thing that they are looking for help with, as well as connecting with other community-based organizations and connecting with schools. So in thinking through sort of how we can best assist some of these groups, it was brought up in our committee discussion to look at some of the resources that we have on our website and sort of think about how we can update that information, make sure that we can connect groups to where they can get city funding, state funding, where they can get some local funding, So hopefully, beginning next year, we're gonna be sort of compiling some more resources where we can direct these organizations for additional help and get connected to other schools in the district. We're also hoping, and maybe they'll come in January, to get the Department of Cultural Affairs to a committee meeting to give us an understanding of some of the city's investments in our cultural institutions. They put out a cultural plan back in 2019, which was pre-pandemic. A lot has changed since then. So it'll be interesting to see sort of what initiatives they're undertaking. Now we're living in sort of a new world, and a lot of the art spaces have had to close or shutter, and how they're gonna be coming back. So speaking directly with DCLA, I think will be very helpful to get our committee sort of some baseline information about investments that they're making here in Community Board 4. And then sort of one little pet project, I saw Community Board 8, and we can't be outdone by any other community board in the city. They put on, their Arts and Cultural Committee put on an art show to highlight local artists in the community. And so I'm connecting with their district manager to figure out sort of how they're doing that. So maybe, fingers crossed, and if anybody would like to help, thinking about space and highlighting and profiling local artists sometime when the weather gets a bit warmer. But it's something that I think would be a lot of fun and get the community out, and yeah, so more to come on that. And those are a few of our updates.
Lisa Wager involved.
Yeah.
She should be,
Yeah.
yeah,
She would
yeah.
be.
But we're thinking about also like West Chelsea and the galleries, and can we use space that would be really special to highlight some of the local artists here, so.
Manhattan West would be, Manhattan West with their huge lawns.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep,
and we just noticed before, right?
very well, yes. So, yeah, I appreciate any ideas, and happy to keep the group, you know, updated as we get more information about how that might work out. So,
Yeah, this is great. Just two questions, two concerns. January 6th. January 6th. Something that's gonna happen. Are we anticipating the children that are now in our schools are gonna be dislocated? Is there any anticipation of what might happen?
Yeah, I.
We don't know.
You're referring to inauguration.
The 20th, not the 6th, the 20th.
But inauguration.
No.
No,
No, I'm talking about when he takes over.
Yes,
Takes
right,
over.
right,
Which is
right.
the 20th.
I mean, our mayor is saying is that, you know, everyone's gonna be protected, but of course that doesn't really hold a lot of water, so I don't know the
Okay,
answer to that.
second question, the Western Rail Yards.
Yes,
Paul knows there's been discussion, there's supposed to be a school there. Do we know anything about that?
no, we don't, Jesse can attest to
Sure.
it, it's been on there, on the, in the plan for quite some time, but we
Yeah.
need a new school. I mean, there was no way with any kind of redevelopment of Nitro, we absolutely need a new school.
Well, they're gonna, so, in their plans, it says there's gonna be a school,
Right,
but
we don't know.
so we don't know.
What the relationship is now is that it's on the SCA and DOE to send a letter to, you know, to relay it saying we wanna go ahead. I mean, obviously before that, Western Railroads has to be decided. They can't just,
Right.
you're right, they're not gonna just build the Western Railroads for the school, but we Related has issued a letter to DOE, you know, almost every year saying, you know, let us know when you're ready to like talk about this. But nonetheless, obviously, the bigger problem is what happens to the actual Western Railroad.
Gotcha.
The school was there from originally,
Yeah,
Yeah.
from 2009.
That was part of the community.
Yeah, the original.
One thing, I will say, just in response to your wondering if the schools are prepared to deal with any changes that might be happening to students who are asylum seekers or not from the US. I will say that I was speaking with a high school earlier this week, not in our district, but here in Manhattan, with a bunch of students who are migrants, and they said it's by far the number one issue on these kids' minds. And that they are terrified of what's gonna happen in January. So I do, and they were asking me, as a retired lawyer, they said, you know, do I know anybody who could help give, you know, legal advice on asylum issues? So it's clearly gonna be something, I think, and especially because, you know, while we have middle schools and elementary schools, we have 20 high schools in our district.
right.
And I was just wondering, I know you gave us the numbers, I just realized I've never heard, you gave us the numbers of kids in shelters in elementary schools and middle schools. But do we have the number for the kids in high schools?
We do not, we have to connect with the other superintendent, it's harder to get those numbers, yeah. But we can.
So should the message generally be lock everybody in the school?
Yeah.
I think the message should go to our electeds, saying we are concerned and we need you to stiffen the mayor's back.
That's going to help.
What form of message would you be thinking of? Strongly worded.
No, but I mean, yeah.
I mean, another piece of paper with words on it?
Yes, exactly.
Well, but now Adams has said he's supporting it, so sending that to Adams is not.
Right.
Right.
It has to be really hyper local.
But that letter has to go out yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, so the committee is doing a lot of work on this, and has met with DOE and is meeting with Mayor's Office of Government Affairs in January, so I would recommend folks that are thoughtful and caring about this, attend the committee, participate, listen in, and hear what they have to say. I will say just, and I know that the point of this is not to just pat everybody on the back, but I've been here for 10 years and I've heard this committee evolve and morph, right? And I will say it is evolving immensely, and I think it's actually really going in a really great direction. And the amount of input that Josephine and Matt have gotten from the arts and culture world, I think far outweighs what they used to have. And but our connection to our local superintendent has never been better. Our connection to a lot of different DOE programs and relationships with school. You know, we have a very great relationship with the person who's in charge of the families and the kids in these shelters and getting them to school. She comes on a regular basis and gives updates. So I would rely on the committee and
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's at the top of it for you.
Sure.
And I just wanted to raise, and I have not had a chance to read up on this, but this morning, Mark Levine announced a new plan or platform for universal free education for zero or childcare for 0 to 2. And so it would be worth taking a look at that and trying to understand what benefits or value that brings to the kids in our district. And
Thank you.
so I admit, I have not yet, I think there's a report and I know he's doing like the press thing. And I don't know, obviously, like, it's running. you know,
Right, that's what it is.
So
One
like,
platform.
what, right, and who's gonna fund it
It's
and
a
all
great
of those
idea,
things.
but, okay, yeah.
But if there's something, it's worth taking a look at and seeing
Thank
what is valuable and maybe, you know,
You mentioned the after hour program, the people, the portion which is, we don't have enough,
Yes,
that's on the elementary.
yes, because it's not free, like
Right.
it's there, but you have to pay for it.
Right,
Yeah.
so I think that would be a good place maybe to approach the corporations in our district and say they can contribute either in people or in money and, you know, save.
Or like to a specific school or something as opposed
The
to.
PTAs do quite a bit of work engaging with local businesses and some of the big corporations to get those donations to help subsidize, so. A lot of that does fall on sort of the PTA to kind of organize and do that outreach, but it does happen.
You could
And I
help,
think, yeah, and I think
because they are
yeah.
like, you have the connection at Related,
Yeah.
at Google, at Facebook, you know, the big stuff, right?
One of the things that we really also want to try to do is further improve our engagement with the PTAs at
Right.
schools.
Oh, that's.
So when we were going through our district needs, in the past, we've often relied on the principal to give us sort of what they want. This time we actually reached out to the PTAs and got input from parents and families about sort of the needs of the school. So I think those types of things we're starting to also build upon, we could certainly be a resource for them with those types of connections, so I totally agree. I know just being a part of the PTA is, we do really rely on a lot of those donations to help subsidize and support a lot of the programming. It's helpful.
And there are 3 big corporations trying to spend money.
Yes.
SL Green, Silverstein, and Related.
Right,
Yeah, they
Yeah.
should be
Exactly.
putting a lot more money in the community.
this guy should be sprinkling everywhere.
And national.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, but yeah, I was gonna say, I think, But also, are there other districts that have their after-school programming funded?
No,
Fully?
no,
So we would
no.
be like, but it seems like an every man for himself kind of thing, where if you can get the funding for your district, you can, or for your specific schools, you can run with it.
Yeah, generally for elementary schools, it's not funded. But you know, in some other areas where the needs are higher, yeah, they do get more funds than we do.
Okay.
But
Maybe for another committee, but I was wondering, was PS 11 or the Ryan Center?
yes, right. Yes,
I don't know what the update is on
Right,
that one.
right. So the Ryan Center has had to shut down many of their school-based programming because they're just in financial trouble. There's just no other way around it. So unfortunately, we have lost them at PS 11, which is a huge loss. And we are in need of social workers more than ever, especially as you say, with everything that's going on. I did connect with someone at New York Presbyterian. I don't know if they're going to be able to come. It's hard because we kind of have the whole social worker is kind of a hodgepodge situation. So we have Ryan Health at one school. We have a Bridging the Gap social worker at another school, which comes from the DOE. And we also have Mount Sinai in some high schools. So it's just kind of like all over the place. And the DOE has always done this. We don't really have a solid sort of social worker program. So I'm trying to connect with New York Presbyterian to see if, because there are also in schools, but not in this neighborhood. So I don't know, you know, if they're going to be interested in doing something like that, but PS 33, they're going to need one for sure. And they want to have a social worker. They had a Bridging the Gap person, but with everything that's going on there, they really need to have one. So that's the push that we're going to have to make.
You know, the hospital for special surgery, they are in two places now in our neighborhood. They are up at 60th Street and they are in related, you know, in Hudson Yards, the private clinic. So that's another way to go to related and say, can we get somebody here?
When I talked to them at the last, and you get a blank stare, and Carrie was at this meeting, you know, we're talking about the schools and just the stare of like, there's just no recognition that this is even an issue
On the
at
map,
all,
right.
right? I mean,
Maybe
So-
we could, and we can talk offline about this, but maybe talking to Hudson Guild. I mean, they're effectively co-located. They said they're meeting with Ken every week. Maybe we can talk to him and see how he can help advocate or coordinate for the needs of the school and
That's a really
students
good
there
idea.
and go that way instead of
Yeah.
trying to forge a path where they don't seem to.
Get it?
They, right, I don't know why, but I mean, I, you know, saw that reaction. Maybe we can see if Ken can help over something.
right.
But I also wonder, I mean, and I don't know if this is an issue or not, but like, if it. Like if they don't wanna hear about one school, like if they wanna hear, you know. How could we help all schools, or you know what I mean, like, or are we only advocating for one school, or, you know, I guess we just sort of have to try and figure out the.
Or programs.
Yeah, because like presumably, I mean, there are lots of schools that don't have social workers, right? And we don't wanna. I don't know.
I guess my point is
Yeah.
that PS 33 is on the campus, it's like right next door to where you're gonna be tearing buildings down.
Oh,
So
yeah,
if they're not
yeah,
gonna help
That's
there,
a really
then
good point.
what are you gonna do, you know? So I feel like they should at least be looking out for that school and the children. in it.
It made no contact.
So that should have been, you know, points of agreement or whatever we are going to do.
Oh, for sure. And by the way, I think even
Yes.
before that, I
Right.
feel like the conversation was established, they're looking at they responded to the DEIS. I think there's a difference. I think some of it was maybe semantics, but nonetheless, the importance of true engagement,
Right,
that is not happening and it is lacking. And help work with that. Carrie, you had a question?
No, I just wanted to maybe provide a
can't
little
hear you.
Very cold.
you can't hear me?
We're gonna see if that's on our end.
Can you try again, Carrie?
Hi.
Yeah.
Just a little context around, I think it's a really good idea to talk to Hudson Guild about PS 33. And I think the reason that related is engaging with Hudson Guild is they are tearing Hudson Guild down and they are tearing they are not tearing down PS 33. They're just tearing down everything next to PS 33.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so they have an obligation to speak to Hudson Guild because they are, literally going to be displaced. So that's an interesting idea that we should pursue.
Great. All right, any other? Yeah, thank you, and I'll just echo Jesse's comments of how far you guys are bringing the committee, and really grateful for your commitment and leadership for the issues. Yes. Okay, for those not at the table, please feel free to come and take snacks, reach over your colleagues, no problem. So we'll move to the chair report, and I'm gonna turn to one of my colleagues if there's, for you to, if you like to chime in on some of these topics. It would be great so that it's not just me offering a monologue, but the first thing I do want to start with is that, just today, there was a press release by the governor, I don't know, you think on the website? Okay, well, I can send it to any of you that are interested, or you can Google it, about Site K. The RFP for Site K, which is the, area, the plot just, adjacent to Javits, the RFP was released in July of 2023, so over a year ago. We had some follow-up calls with them over the summer and more recently to say like, hey, ESD, hey, state, what are you doing here? We're talking about city gas, we're talking about the governor's commitment to housing. What's the plan? And just today they released, the press release, they are gonna be developing, a property called Hudson, HDSN, 1,349 residential units, which include 404 affordable, which, is 30% affordable. The AMI's vast majority are gonna be an average of 130 AMI, so they've reserved, some for 60%, the 5% will be for 60%, and,
Flip that.
oh, excuse me,
You said majority will, the average will be 60%.
excuse me.
5% of the
Right,
revenue makes up to 1/3.
Thank you. They will also, in the development team is 31% MWBE developer, not vendors, but developer partners. They're also gonna be housed on that property, a hotel with 455 keys run by Hilton, a nonprofit climate museum, which will be 24,000 square feet over 3 floors, and Emma's Torch, which is a nonprofit focused on culinary training. It'll operate a restaurant and training facility. So really like a full package of residential, obviously some commercial and nonprofit community facilities.
Who's the developer on it? Is it-
It's Boston Properties, actually don't know.
Boston and Moynihan are the lead,
Yeah,
the two leads, and then there's two MWBA co-developers.
Okay.
And it's more
It's
than.
not,
one.
it's not, it's not state, it's not, this is, the governor announced this, but it's not like a.
because it's state-owned property.
Because it is correct state-owned property.
So, but it's a $1.3 billion project. It'll be 2 buildings on a platform that will be 5 stories because Amtrak runs under a piece of it. So much like the work we heard about related and the difficulty of building a platform and all of the things, as ESD has shared, was a very complicated and complex site to arrange and to bring together all of these development partners and all of these facilities and the financing, et cetera. I mean, 1.3 billion is, no small amount. And it's in part because of the consideration of Amtrak and the work that needs to be done to not disrupt and preserve what's happening there. I have some notes that from a call that I did with ESD. So if there are any questions, hopefully I can answer them, but I would also encourage anyone to look at the press release, which as I mentioned, it is one of the things that's being touted. I probably should have led with this. The RFP indicated that this would be 24 FAR, so a pretty substantial site. What is unique about what they've done here is that since the RFP was released, the residential cap has been lifted. So they were able to go higher on residential than they would have otherwise been able to go. So they're maintaining 24 as the FAR, but instead of 12 FAR being devoted to housing, they went up to 18, which is how we're able to get more housing units out of this site. And they pulled that from other commercial development, in this case, the hotel.
The cap,
So this is for those who are advocates of removing the cap. This was a real benefit and the first project to have that happen. I think what makes this particularly palatable is they didn't change the overall FAR, which was 24. So they worked with that.
Wasn't and Joe's not here to answer this question, he would know off the top of his head, but wasn't it a 6 FAR cap on residential?
I think it was 12.
But 12 was the state cap, but I think on that,
Oh.
The original, so the original.
it was a
yeah.
6.
The zoning, the underlying zoning overall there is 6, so I think you can only do 6 per.
So they,
yeah, but it's like a GDP.
but it's a
They
GPP,
moved
so
it.
they could have gone up to 12
Right.
before, but now they're up to 18.
Right.
But the overall envelope is still capped at 24. So we've gotten significantly more housing and 30%, which is something that we always push for.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a real positive for
Yeah,
us.
and in terms of the housing affordability, in addition to things that the housing, we don't have representation today from our co-chairs from housing, but the things that are typically advocated for in terms of distribution across the building and the floors, equal access to amenities, the same finishes, all of those things have all been secured and have been part of the letter of agreement for this deal. So all of those,
where the site is?
the.
It's across the street of the Javid.
So that is there.
It's on 11th Avenue.
Christina,
South.
stop standing on the
On the
buses
east.
over there. That's what we're doing, that's what we've just, we've been putting every bus stop on the left, we're gonna have to start moving the bus stops.
We can literally walk 2 blocks that way and get to it. It's a big hole in the ground right now, but it's not actually a site. It's
The whole area is a whole.
Yeah, so, yeah.
The reason I
Yeah.
asked that is that there was a conversation the other day that I heard talking about the western rail yards, which I now understand is not this site,
Correct.
but the conversation was to go back to the drawing boards and consider the integration of the entire site on, I know.
That's another site.
Yeah.
That's the Marshall.
Right across the street.
That's the Marshall.
No, that's a different one.
It's a different site from site.
The Marshall yards are west of 11th Avenue, and I understand this site to be east of 11th Avenue, if I'm saying that right. Is anybody thinking about it, thinking holistically about that whole area, or is
So
this-
what I can say is that on the call that we had, with ESC, and then today a call I had with Tony Simone's office, was really emphasizing, was actually moving on a little bit from this specific project and saying, we are gonna have so much development happening in this area, from Gateway to Port Authority Bus Terminal to whatever happens with Western Rail, all these timelines. Well, yes, but right here,
Yeah,
this, like, in
all
this
the same
sector,
place.
Yes.
and this kind of coordination really needs to be considered. Not from what I think you're raising in terms of design and building, but actually from coordination of construction, trucks, vehicles, traffic, et cetera. A truly holistic approach needs to be taken. Tony's office seemed to say, like, let's start by aligning the timeline. Not all these projects are happening at the same time. So a word on this timeline, it'll be they'll spend 2 years effectively in working with Amtrak to understand how they work, right, planning, as well as beginning the environmental, doing the environmental review process, et cetera. So, but Tony's office said, let's start by lining up all of these things, understanding where that timeline sits, and then let's figure out what kind of, with PVT, which we'll talk about in a minute, we talked a lot about this construction task force and how to engage the community, and the reality is their community is gonna be experiencing a lot of things amplify, multiply, not because of one project, but because of all of the projects, and how do we navigate?
And also add to that, the west side, 12th Avenue, the pier, there's gonna be commercial development there.
Yeah, I mean, there's more I didn't say.
And no, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
also,
And there's the
Part of
look at
it.
9A, and
Yeah.
there's the look at the cruise terminal, like,
Might
there's.
be building a tunnel underneath.
There's, yes. For that word, but I just, Paul, did you have any, you were talking, do you have any?
Just one other thing on the height, as you had said, it's 72 stories, we'll get any indication as to actually how tall the building will be, I'm assuming that's like 750 feet.
But if we have any answer to that.
I
It
didn't.
comes out in any of the details.
I'm sorry, what's that you just said?
This new
This-
building is 72 stories tall.
That's 25.
Oh,
In that side.
Well, it's the same thing, it's the same thing as the commercial towers around next.
So going to,
Yeah, switching the cap, I don't think it's so great all the time.
Sure.
And as Paul well knows, with the cap rate citation, that fits. Other areas, it may not fit. And as Paul knows, we don't have that protection yet. So 72 stories there, great. 72 stories somewhere else, Chelsea or Clinton, not so great.
Well,
So Paul, as Paul knows, we've got to not lose sight of that.
it's a fair point to be clear in what my remarks I said, for those who are in favor of the cap being lifted, because I know that there are still, you know, there are a lot of perspectives on that.
You know,
But it is something we raised with ESD when we spoke, because as you know, we're in discussions about the Intrepid site and how we might feel about this site does not
Yeah.
automatically correspond to how we will feel about the conversations related to that site, so. It's a good point, though.
I was in the end of something, but Christine.
Yeah, so I think this is terrific. I think it's terrific that, as we said, Site K is the perfect place for that. And that whole area is the perfect place. Now, there is a project called Slaughterhouse, which is nearly across the street, which was supposed to do 10 years ago, exactly the same thing. A hotel on one side, the residential, 500 affordable apartment. How do we get ESD or somebody to give them $2 so they can finish the project?
Well, something, before I respond to that, but, well, I should, so I don't forget, let me respond to that. and then come back to something. So we have a very open dialogue with ESD right now. I don't actually know what is possible and what
But
others are available.
it's EDC.
Oh, EDC,
Right.
okay,
It's EDC. I mean, I think,
because I'm.
no, but I think we need to
That's not
really.
what
I'm really a little bit frustrated that we have this thing which is completely, you know, ready to be baked. And we are missing one ingredient. And for 10 years, we have had 500 affordable apartments
Waiting.
waiting to be done. And I think that that should be a big priority of ours, really.
Yeah, one thing that I failed to mention, and you'll see it in the press release, I believe, is that to avoid the slaughterhouse situation, which we understand the delay to be the financing of the hotel has held up the building of the residential. And they have this developer commit that the residential would be delivered first. And it could happen simultaneously to the hotel, but it cannot be contingent on hotel and therefore not contingent on hotel financing. And so similarly here, in this case, based on our experience with Slaughterhouse, we said, we're concerned about a hotel for these reasons. And instead of saying, oh, and I appreciate this, instead of saying no to, no hotel, they said, well, how do we think creatively about how to solve this problem? And we just make sure that they are on the hook for developing this part, at least, if not contemporaneously first, if that can
That's
happen.
really good.
And so that kind of feedback and relationship and discussion, I think, is really positive.
Jessica, the AMI rates were what? Up to
Yeah,
135?
So they are, they're gonna be, a range from 60 up. Well, the 25%, so it'll be a range somewhere in there, and then 5% will be able to go up to 130. So you can, the details are have to be figured out in terms of what we want, what we always want, right, is no donut holes, right? So we can have 60, but we don't want 60 to 80 and then there's that gap, or we stop at 100 and then we have 130, like what's the point of that? So we need to make sure of all of that, but the nice thing is that our letter that we had written a while ago, where it was one big key was about the hotel financing, the housing being dependent on the hotel financing. The other thing was about the 12 IFR cap, but as always about the NMIs. And so there's flexibility in that range. In the way that they have it set
The
up.
moderate middle is still not.
Yeah, it's not going up to 160, but it goes up to 130. So but the average the way they word it is the average of the 25 will be 60%.
Wait, say that again, the average.
The average of the 25 of 25% of the, I'm sorry, of the 25% of the total project will be 60% AMI.
Wait, 25% of the total project, the total affordable housing.
No,
No,
25% of the project would be affordable housing and focused on 60%.
25% of the project,
60% EMI.
the whole thing is gonna be 30% affordable.
Right,
25,
of the 30. I mean, yeah.
So 25
25 of the 100
Yeah,
is gonna be an average of 60.
got
The remaining 5% will be able to go up, will be able to go up to 130.
it, got it, thank you.
So that's not really much moderate, no. Okay. Yeah,
No, but it's more than we've ever had. It's more than we've had in a long time. We don't get 125s anymore.
well, maybe, but it's still not
No.
something that's, I think is healthy for the.
Don't forget, Jessica's a very honest.
Okay, we're gonna, are there any more comments? We are gonna move on, thank you.
How do we go back to the coordination of all this stuff?
I mean, I think in one, that you all, as people who touch each of these projects, like as you're writing letters and thinking, meeting with electeds and stakeholders, like I said today, I raised it on 2 calls and people were like, oh yeah, there is a lot. And so I think we need to just keep doing that. And I think as we see, you know, Tony's office did say they put down this timeline, and I think extent they want to be, you know, our local electeds, people are gonna complain to them. So they're gonna have a key stake in trying to come up proactively with solutions for this.
Well, I started the timeline for the Port Authority.
A perfect segue to the Port Authority.
So I started the timeline because I wanted to say, when are we supposed to check the points of agreement? You know, your points of agreement over Bert's idea. And then I started to put a map with all the projects in the neighborhood and the dates. And so maybe we can add to that map the other things, because when you look at it, it's like overwhelming. Overwhelming. There are going to be things happening everywhere all the time. And so, and I showed that to the HYHK because I was saying, guys, in your HYHK, you're going to have so many new things happening. So I'm game to add whatever you want me to add.
But let's move to Port Authority and Christina, the Thursday prior to Thanksgiving, I think it was, we were in a mad rush getting through the points of agreement process. That has since made its way through, and we have several people here who sit on that working group, JD, Bert, Christine, and myself. But if any of you want to.
So the point of agreement, I think we talked about this group, no, it's on the website, right?
I can make sure it is.
Yeah, so if you want to look at it and read this insane thing, it's on the website and you can.
Why would I want?
And it's a very.
Because your stuff is there. There are things about, commitment.
So I should read it.
Yeah, you should all read it. There is good stuff for everybody. And then we had another meeting this week. And.
Well, we should just say this, we should, like, this went before city council, there was a vote.
Oh, I was skipping.
The points of agreement now are like a legal document.
So if you
So this-
didn't see, the project has been approved in
Right.
its full.
And the federal government has sent the record of decision, which is the big deal to say, okay, you can go ahead. All right, so from the federal government, they are waiting to receive a grant of $1 billion. And they couldn't do that until they had a record of agreement, but hopefully by the middle of January, it's going to be, resolved. So now they have already taken some contract and signed them and sent them out. And so, it's real. I mean, people are going to start building stuff somewhere in 25. So that, and the first two things which are going to be built are the platform over 37, 38, 38, 39, between 9 and 10, right? This is what the first thing to build.
The parks.
No, the platform. And so,
First thing,
perfect
South Park.
segue to the discussion yesterday, where they showed us for the first time, they showed us for the first time how the platform would look while they are a bus terminal, right? The bus terminal for a while is going to be outside. And then horrified, we discovered that there were grates everywhere, grates in the middle. And we were not totally happy with where the grates were. So we had a robust discussion with them about show us where you could put them. Then we discovered that some of the parapets were going to be maintained, even though we thought they were going to be removed. So, because they are structural. So we had a little bit of a discovery, and I think it's going to happen a lot. We're going to discover stuff that the engineers are now going to say, look, this is the way it goes. And we are not going to be necessarily happy, but you know, that's pretty much the way it is. So we're going to be able to change at the margin, but not change the whole thing. So that's what happened yesterday, and you are now totally caught up.
Yeah, we were in, what is different now than a month ago, is we're in a completely different phase
Yes,
of the relationship. Relationship between CB4 and the Port Authority. We've been meeting with them for 4 years. Some of it, most of that 4 years was not public. But there was a give and take, a back and forth, changing, they listened, oh yeah, well maybe, okay. It only became public 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Until we got the points of agreement. We had the help of our electeds, okay? But now it's all quote unquote done. The agreements are all done. So like, there was actually a question among ourselves. Do we continue meeting with them? What's the purpose? Okay, and we sort of came to a conclusion, yes, let's continue meeting with them. Just, and they do provide information each time. Like this is the first time we saw what platforms would look like. Because the platforms eventually will be paused for that continues, okay? But initially, it's gonna be a temporary place for the buses to unload and load. Before anything else.
right,
gets
so
started.
different functions. And there is a whole slew of ventilation that has to take place, because under that is a roadway, right? So you have to have ventilation, where do you put the ventilation, how the ventilation is an obstacle to the park later on, right? So we need to think about that now, and we were kind of, you know, working with that in this meeting.
And they initially showed us ventilation that was elevated. That was a couple of weeks ago. They came yesterday with a different construction,
Right.
more flat.
Right.
Now, you could have some objections, you know, because it's not green or whatever, but they do modify
And the listen.
They are flexible.
Right.
in some ways.
I would like to, I'm so sorry.
No,
I just want to follow up on Bert's, and the talk about continuing. I think it's important, I'll ask Jessica and Jesse this. The working group was formed, to reflect, the input consideration of two committees, basically. The land use committee, because it's a public facility, transportation, because they're concerned about the buses or something. So that was the raison d'etre.
That's right.
And we tried to go back to the committees to keep everybody informed. Now that's done. If we are to continue, I think I would like just to have some authorization from the board, or the committee, or Jesse, or something to say. Or just a feeling that I don't want to make a decision. I mean, I'd love to make a decision, but I don't think we should individually start making decisions without being imprimatur of the board. So
So
how
just
how can we, give birth to the authority to make this?
I don't know.
No,
Well, I
I'm
do
serious,
think
I don't know
so.
what the answer is,
Christine,
but.
Christine mentioned this timeline that she's beginning to put together that is not just a timeline, it also reflects the major projects and the major like legs of what's gonna go forward. And so as that becomes clearer about the timeline related to that, the structure of the decision-making and community input, then we will be able to have the opportunity to say, okay, this is a parks project, so parks folks, committee, you join in this. If there were some cultural element, I know we've actually talked a lot about like art and whatever, then ACES, you should have a representative in this part. I think it's still, it's a little, I think it's very, it's in the very near term that we will be able to do that. I think like literally December 19th, it's still premature, but I anticipate that taking this massive project and putting it back into our committee structure is something I anticipate happening. And I think we also need to think about, as the Port Authority has done over the course of this last year, the way that they engage with the board in public. Coming to the board meetings, coming to committees, presenting, providing updates. We'll need to think about how we do that so that the public can also participate in that more fully than what we are able to do. Right now, we're warning them that they need to do that because we're warning them that this is gonna have a lot of individual comments and feedback.
And in the point of agreement, there is a whole section about engagement. And they are supposed to engage in different ways, etc. And I think as we are, looking at this plan, that's when we're going to say, okay, this should be done by this committee, this should be done by that committee. I think we cannot for 10 years,
Yeah.
carry the ball. I mean,
No.
we need to have a committee do what they know how to do. And, the park should be planned by the park. So the park is supposed to be planned starting in 1 year. At that point, I would expect the leader on the park is going to be the parks committee.
I don't wanna go another year.
Right, no, but you know what I'm saying, there's nothing happening on the park between now and then.
Gotcha.
This is when you look at the schedule, it's like it's happening in 1 year. In 1 year, now you turn it over,
Maybe, and then,
You said something about $1 billion.
Yes.
I guess I'm just wondering, what is the risk of delay if the funding doesn't show up? And does the very possible government shutdown have any?
Well, the 1 billion is 10% of the project. So it's not, there is already 90% of the project, which is
Right.
locked in,
Oh, great, okay,
right? So 1 billion, because it's a 10 billion project.
okay.
Now, not to say they have made rumblings that if they don't get the 1 billion, they're going to have to be cutting some of the features. So that's going to be another fight.
But it wouldn't stop the start of it.
No, but I mean, definitely there will be a fight about that.
And they specifically push to get it done and signed off.
Before.
Yeah. I
Before.
guess they did.
And they hope they will. They think they will.
I just want to follow up on the notion of continuing. I know you don't want to, I'm gonna volunteer you guys to continue on, because there's a lot of things
You
that.
have to pay.
Yeah, I'll bake some cookies for the next meeting. But there were a lot of things, there were a lot of things that didn't seem to really be solidified in the process, like how are we moving 250,000 bodies from the temporary terminals to the subways?
Yeah,
And that flow of bodies,
right.
like, nobody seems to be thinking about that at Port Authority, but you guys are.
No,
And
they
so
do.
we could monitor the progress.
But I
so
mean,
that-
yeah, and you could say,
don't
okay,
miss out.
that portion of the project, this should be coming to transportation committee.
But we
And-
won't know,
Yeah.
Transportation Committee won't know unless somebody else is in regular.
Oh, yeah,
communication.
we need
I
to be
think,
on.
time will tell, and obviously,
Right.
a lot of perspectives and veteran members of this working group. I would say that, we have been meeting on a very rigorous schedule every week, an hour at least on this. It may be a different schedule,
Right,
But regular.
but
regular.
the lines of communication for this core group that holds that historical knowledge and compromise and all of that beyond what's in the points of agreement, but also the points of
Because
agreement.
suddenly a
is
shaft can come up in the middle of a platform and you're like, wait,
Yeah.
If I went into a meeting, I wouldn't know that shaft was different.
Right,
You'll know that's where that's
Mhm.
supposed to go.
you should ask Joe, you know.
No,
Send
no
Joe
one.
there.
Joe's
not here,
the
let's volunteer.
topic, so I
Okay,
wanna move on,
that's
but
it.
I wanna also just, I don't know that we, hopefully at the board we did this, but I wanna, you know, again, publicly acknowledge the work of the working group. I mean, it's for like, it's years and years and years. Previously Betty was, as was Jeffrey, and don't forget Betty.
Don't
and,
forget
um,
Betty.
And really great work, so thank you for allowing me to participate in that. The other, I'm gonna turn it to WRY, I know, so there was a cold meeting last week, not cold in spirit, or maybe cold in spirit, it was just actually,
heat.
it was just
I
actually
couldn't tell,
physically
yeah.
very
Wow.
cold, but a very full house. I think the most well-attended, meeting we've had probably since the NYCHA, meetings we did back last year. And so I know this will be coming to full board and you can watch the committee meeting, online if you're interested, but maybe, JD and Paul, you can just do like a high-level summary to folks.
It was an excellent meeting, Paul did a great job.
Yes, he did.
And I think-
Yes, it did.
I think it was an excellent meeting, community meeting.
If you can,
Yeah.
so just do a high level.
High level.
Yeah.
High level is that the committee vote was very controversial in the way that we deviated from our norm. Normally, we say deny unless or approve with conditions. This was a flat out denial. Unanimous by the committee. Right, so it was decided that this site has a 2009 plan that supports 5,700 housing units. It's a plan that's in place to replace a plan with 1,500 housing units in a time when we're in a housing crisis across the board, affordable market, everything. I don't like, we shouldn't be removing 4,000 housing units from our stock in our location. And the reason they're saying it should be changed is because they don't have the funding to build a platform for these houses. So they're saying the casino is going to pay for the platform, but the casino doesn't have a license. So that's not a guarantee of money either. So it's an inconsistent pattern. And on top of that, the draft EIS has a litany of unmitigated, unresolved issues. Like they can't solve the traffic problem. They can't solve the air quality problems. So for those three reasons, we need the housing. Don't wipe out 4,000 housing units from our housing plan. You don't have the financing. You still don't have the financing because you don't have a license. And it's an unmitigated disaster. So for those three things, we're saying, let's get the state, the city council, bunch of other people together and say, let's come up with a scheme to finance the housing on this site. Right, we have ESD could do it, the marshalling yard, just mentioned the marshalling yards to the north, so 33 to 34 is an empty lot, the state owns that. The MTA owns the site and related leases from them. Jeff Blau, many meetings has said, if this zoning doesn't happen, the 2009 plan will not happen. And he said one time in a meeting, we'll turn in the keys. So we're like, turn in the keys.
We'll
Right,
find somebody
let's
else.
find someone else. This is a midtown Manhattan, 3 blocks of land, highly desirable in the globe to develop. So if Related doesn't want to fulfill its promises to build, let's talk to the state, let's talk to the city, let's find some other resources, let's get that platform built, let's get the 5,700 housing units built. So that's sort of the thrust of the letter. Now I'm navigating the letter. That was a nice synopsis. It's gonna be like.
Anything to add?
No, that's the thrust of the letter, we probably BLB totally not.
And the letter will also include our comments to the environmental.
Yeah, so this, and part of the struggle of the deny and, you know, the reason we do deny unless or approve the conditions is because we want our conditions inserted into the record. Right, so what I'm going to do is take those conditions, everybody in the committee took sections and incorporate that into a letter. That says this fails for this reason, and here's a statement as to why. This fails for this reason, here's a statement as to why. So I'm gonna take all those pieces and say, these are the statements that we have.
But are you going to do like BLP does, which is like when they deny and we are afraid that the state is still going to pass it, then they take conditions at the end and say, if you were stupid enough to approve.
I'm
Include these provisions.
I'm working through that. I don't know how to actually phrase that,
Yeah.
but.
They just gave you the wording.
Yeah.
No.
We use those words all the time.
I do think it's, you know, this is going to go to the city, our council member. I have reached out to him in the new year to pick up this conversation again so that he can be clear on our perspective, but I do think, the environmental, it's a review process and our comments we need to make sure, just like we did with NYCHA, we had plenty of people who said, why are we even participating in this process if we don't agree with the project?
Right.
We said, well, we need to be part of the review process.
We need to be on
So-
record, because there are three things we're actually voting on. It's a ULURP for special, zoning text amendment, special permits. There's a ULURP on a road, street G-mapping, and then there's the draft environmental impact statement, which we have to comment on as well. So we have sort of a requirement to comment on this stuff, so we will find a way to comment on that stuff.
I think
it would be quite detailed, the reasons beyond the main thrust. I think all those other things that you detailed in like. And one other thing that did come up, City of Yes, they have now $5 billion for housing. Where's that 5 billion go? Could that go to build a platform to support 5,000 of the 80,000 houses? You know, so I think there's a lot of things that are gonna come into it, and, so.
Okay, Jesse.
Just a quick question about, has are we at all concerned with ramifications on terms of related panel approach on NYCHA? Does this at all affect our negotiating for other conditions in terms of NYCHA? I don't think I have heard them link the two projects together.
They've been very aggressively trying to link the projects.
Yeah,
They talk about how
Okay.
they're producing so much, when you go to a NYCHA meeting now, or even the related meetings for Western Areas, they start with how wonderful they are in building so much housing in our community. And they are trying to link the
Right.
two,
Yes.
and we're trying to keep them separated.
Okay.
Because they
But I
should
will
not be.
say our
They should
points of
not.
Not
contact-
It should not be, yeah, but
our
I
points
just
of
wanna make sure
contact
that
we would
we're.
work with on these projects, I mean, obviously, they all ladder up to, like, it's one organization, one company, but our points of contact and who we work with are different largely on the project,
Yeah,
and I think Jeff Wow is the CEO, so
Yeah.
he's, he comes to those kind of meetings, he's involved, but the related, the CO for
Greg
Hudson,
versus Andy.
exactly,
Okay.
so.
The way they
different
link
teams.
for me, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going anyway. The way they link for me is that in each occasion, we are taking the information from related that we don't trust.
Right.
That's true on both sides. And but I don't know where that goes, but that's my overwhelming feeling about both those projects.
Well, I understand what you're saying. We don't believe a lot.
You can't link the projects because of the reasons that you just said, but because it's related in both the projects, that gives us information about related, since they won't behave differently on one project than they behave on the other.
I would just note that I think these projects and the entities involved with them are very different. The applicant, NYCHA is a key, as an entity, is a key driver in how we've related over these last several years. I think it would, I don't know that we need to go into it further at this point, but I just think there's a lot of complexity in what they share, when they share it, how they share it, including that perhaps they're not always being forthcoming. I don't want to dismiss that, but I just think there are many other components and complexities to the project, and we should take the time, the committees and the people working directly on it should take the time to really understand those and push for more information on each of them and not try to conflate them. Be my recommendation.
So just very kind. So just to, we all got a mailer, I think on Western Rail Yards, everyone got, from the union sport. We shouldn't expect a mailer in the next like 2 weeks saying, if we don't get our casino, screw your housing, that's.
That mailing never mentions a casino.
It doesn't, sorry, we don't get our hotel.
It absolutely did. It does. It did.
I don't think we can control what
No,
they
we
say
can't,
about
I just don't know, it just.
Yeah, I think, okay, thank you, we look forward, this will be.
Is this a public hearing? Are we doing another public hearing on this ad for board?
We normally do on a letter. But
Because we did the public.
we already have done, technically, we've already done a public hearing.
But
So
did we,
we'd rather
did we
not.
notice it as a ULURP public hearing?
I can put the words you left in there.
I mean, do we
I don't think that's-
but I mean, do we need to, because it's a ULURP, but just think about
We
that.
can talk about it.
And I'm happy if we do other ones. Okay.
And, okay, I wanna. I'm hesitating to turn to this next topic, which is NYCHA. We went from very, very cold to exceedingly hot. I don't know how people didn't come to us in the meeting, I had to hang outside of a window.
You're still not talking about the physical thing. I thought again, I thought that was going on.
No, it was,
Really hot because the room.
the room was.
Room was, I think with the air conditioner.
Oh my gosh, it was incredibly uncomfortable. Thank you all for surviving. Greg here in the room, Carrie, I don't know if there's anything we continue to move forward on this project, but anything you'd like to share about the meeting and just where we are, as this time.
I think we're in the same, same place that we've been. We are continuing to try to elicit information from Related, Essence, and NYCHA. And when we get some, we are holding meetings to make sure the community knows about it. I mean, they're showing up. The development team is showing up and they're doing the presentations. And I think, the more it's kind of like Port Authority, but public, the more we're just confronting them with our questions, hopefully the more they have to answer them. I don't think nothing has changed. We don't have the response to our draft scope of work for the EIS yet, which I'm just wondering if that's just a really long time. And hopefully that comes in January. It continues to feel like, the population of NYCHA residents and the Chelsea community is split on this. And I'm not sure what else to say. We're really doing our best to represent everyone.
Thank you, Carrie. Greg, anything you want to add before we?
On the meeting opened on the record with, I think, the development team saying that the CLU had some questions that were submitted in advance of the meeting in preparation for the presentation. And we sort of on the record that Carrie prompted them to sort of acknowledge that first week of January, we should have responses to some of those questions. So in addition to the presentation that we heard and some insight we got, but not particularly helpful, there's a subset of questions that were asked that we're supposed to get written responses to as well. So hopefully that'll help us as we continue to learn or share or ask additional questions on top of the ones we've already asked that we've not heard.
And we will also record the questions that came up during the meeting that did not get answered and submit them as well, along with, the ones pre-meeting, so that they are included in their response.
Great, I'm just gonna add a few things and then I know there are questions. One is, just so folks know, the meeting, while not technically a joint meeting, was attended by Housing, Health and Human Services. And so part of what they presented was their updates to, what are we calling it, the bridge plan? The bridge plan, which include the repairs and security, in-unit repairs, security, and pest control. They gave an update and a presentation on that. They gave a presentation on the financing, and they gave a presentation on, what's the third?
Just the updated bridge plan, or how the bridge plan is going. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they offered this commitment to respond to the questions that we provided. And as those who attended the board meeting last month will remember, we had tabled a letter to our electeds requesting that they meet, but we sent an admin letter requesting that meeting is being confirmed. I believe it will be the first full week in January, so following our board meeting. So we can't expect that we'll hear anything new at the board meeting on this topic, given that the letter and the meeting is looking to happen during that week. But these are, I know it's painful and slow, and we've said it before, but these are indications of open dialogue and discussion, in this case, discussion with our electeds. Yeah, so a bunch of questions on this, but I want to acknowledge the time at 7:42, and I think we should be out of here by 8. So let's just try to keep it brief. I'm gonna start with Josephine and then I'll go to David.
I don't know if land use or housing wants to do this, but there was a report by the comptroller's office yesterday that said that after redevelopment, the eviction rates for NYCHA just go way up. And we've heard from countless residents that this is what their greatest fear is, since we're going to have them. So I feel in some ways, one of the committees should address it. or-
100%. Greg saw the report
Needs to
and
be shared and respected.
Yeah, I also just want to say, I think it's actually, I have to read it fully because I didn't get to today, but I think it's packed rad. It's not even redevelopment. It's switching from section 9 to section 8. So that is not my expertise. I'm going to probably, ask Joe to talk to me about that and help me understand it, but it feels like a HHHS issue.
but
Yeah,
I would say that means that even if it wasn't demolition and it was renovation.
that's what I
that
mean. It's
still
not.
applies. And so
Yeah,
that
it's not
doesn't
about
change
renovation. It's actually about moving from a section 9 to section 8.
But
Yeah.
obviously, tenants' rights and that commitment has been a priority throughout and is totally heard.
Yeah.
Greg and Carrie, you did an excellent job. And I think Paul and I are eternally grateful that NYCHA is not in housekeeping.
Well, that's okay. We'll flip something to you.
Honestly, both,
Yeah.
you did a great job. I mean, it's really terrific. I have two quick questions. I can ask either one. The division between the two opposing tenants groups is kind of difficult for a lot of us to understand entirely. So at some point, I'd love to know what you all think about that. Not now, because we're on YouTube. Secondly, correct me, because I keep thinking when I thought I heard something where the tenants would all be moved back to one building. Is that
Yes.
correct?
No,
Completely.
no, that's not correct.
But
But
it's all together.
yes,
It's
So-
segregated.
so let's let Carrie respond.
Yeah. So there are 2 campuses, and on each campus, all of the current NYCHA residents would be moved into 3 new buildings
On both campuses?
on each campus. So there would be 6 in total, 3 on each campus, and they would be towers. And then the rest of the land would be mixed income, market
So there
rate.
Was there any talk, I'm sorry, Carrie. didn't mean
That's
to interrupt
okay.
you. Was there any talk at any point of that the NYCHA residents should also be in those?
Yes, it's been in our letters. That's been in
It's-
our.
It's a point of view, it's a consistent point of view of the board. It's been in our draft
Yes.
scope of work response. It's been constantly brought up.
Sorry about that. I didn't, thank you.
Yeah, yes, no, for sure, yeah.
No, I just wasn't able to watch this week's meeting. I'm just learning, did we learn anything big new this week? It sounds like there were a few presentations, but if you were to take 1 or 2 big takeaways from this week, that you maybe share? Any new information we had?
I mean, the one thing that is questionable that I took away that was new, just as a like a sentence or 2 sentences, is that it doesn't seem that it's either. Wait, hold on. Let me just think about how to say this. Sorry, because they can't quite commit to it being either to renovation versus demolition being either more affordable for the project overall or to create more housing for the project overall. So, or to happen in a faster time span overall. So that's what I took away. So meaning that they can't quite provide the facts that say that this is better for the residents because it will cut the construction time, it will cut, the cost of the project overall or anything like, so that's sort of what I took away. And I think that's what we're going to probably dig into when we meet with the elected officials, like why is everyone supporting this 100% when we're not sure what is the benefit to the residents? That's the question. Besides, either way, we're going to assume that everybody gets new apartments, whether it's renovation or demolition.
A takeaway that I had from the meeting is terms of news. Because I'm not in the regular meetings, I just come to the once a month meetings, is that, they are having conversations now about the changes that can happen without any sort of rezoning or new work process, so they are already discussing the demolition of 2 buildings and relocating some of those people as right by right, they're calling it, and so there are steps being made.
They notify
towards
tenants.
some progress that's happening already for
You call
relocation.
that problem.
But I will say that's not new, honestly. That's
Well,
been
no, I'm
the
saying
whole
that
time.
was new- That
Yeah.
was new to me, though. Like,
Yeah,
coming into
so-
the meeting as an
Okay.
outsider, so to speak.
There's
Yeah.
one building on each campus that's as of right, meaning they could walk up tomorrow and if it weren't, you know, NYCHA, they could probably kick you out and knock those buildings down. Yeah.
Christine and then Marty and then, you know, what else?
So one thing I'm really confused up to now, we hear a lot of what they do and the conversation, etc. I am personally not clear on our position. And by our position, I would say, you know, this is kind of deny unless letter. Not, we don't have that yet, but I would like to see a deny unless draft. Which
Right.
says, we're not going to agree unless A, B, C, D, because if you go and see the elected, I think it behooves us to have a document like that and say, you know, at the end of the day, I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
I care about what we say, and what we say is, to me, not clear at all.
So right
I
now we're on record for being opposed to demolition. So
Yeah,
we
but no,
have,
I'm not talking about just that level, I'm talking about, maybe we don't care about demolition or not, as long as they are going to do all the following things. And then you can say on the top of it, we don't like demolition because, but at a minimum, we should have a list.
We're just not there yet. I mean,
yeah, we're just not there
no,
yet.
I
Yeah.
mean, they still haven't responded to the.
So we
this
don't need them to
draft.
respond.
No, we do.
Why?
Just this, because we need that information. I
And
mean, we don't, the land use committee didn't go off and put a recommendation on the Port Authority before the ULUR. Right, like that's, so you're gonna wait for that process to
Yeah.
do, I mean,
I'm
I
just
think it would be
concerned that,
presumptuous.
I'm just concerned that it's too late, if you go and
We have a
see
list of priorities.
the elected official, you know, we need to be able to tell Eric, look, we need to have that list of things here.
So I would just also offer a few things. One is, I think we're very clear when you look at our very long list of questions about the things that are concerning to us about the project moving forward without clarity. And even directionally, what the answers to these questions need to be. Additionally, we have to remember that the Tenants Association is voted for this. Now, there are questions about the vote, I recognize that, so even saying that is complicated. But for the board to come out and say deny unless, even informally, would be to, and the Tenants Association just had another vote and affirmed their leadership. So now the vote was very close, the vote was very close.
By 16.
By 60.
16.
So it's very
No,
split.
it's a thought.
Oh, not that we still don't have that.
No, it's extremely split. So and that makes it even more complicated for us. But to what Jesse and Jessica are saying, we don't have all the information. You know, I think the difference is all these meetings are public. So it feels like this is just happening, you know, month after month, and the frustration and that we're not moving forward, but we are moving forward. It's just slow and painful. So if we could ask everyone to, I don't know, just bear with the pain, with us, please, until I do think this meeting with the electeds, in January will produce, at least we will get a sense of where everyone stands, like openly, hopefully. And because I think it's become more complicated than they thought when they originally came out in favor. Yeah.
And if I can, just as someone who obviously came on board with some late in some ways to this and is now navigating as best as possible as co-chair.
Right.
Yeah, something like that. I just want to say, like, I understand the pressure and complexity of, or the desire for more clarity, like I get that, stand a position, you know, but in my effort to just digest the set of letters and communications that have come out from this board over it's very clear, like, the, the sort of messaging, which is, we have questions that have to be answered, you're still not answering. We have questions that have to be answered, you still need the answer. We have questions that, like, it just over and over and over again. And the questions are comprehensive, thoughtful, dynamic. And the truth is, this meeting that's upcoming is the first time the electeds are actually getting called into a room to try to, I think, respond directly to us. So to your point, I understand why you're saying what you're saying. And also, I think we've got to get through this conversation with the electeds to have any ability to just start to understand how we get answers before I think there's
Yeah,
additional.
my concern is that we have heard we are for the demolition or against the demolition, right? And I'm trying to stay past that and say, okay, but what are the other things we need?
Well, so I will say, yeah,
Right?
totally fair enough, Christine, and we hear your point. I will say this. Since we've been involved, the bridge plan, which is the interim repairs plan, which is the meanwhile plan, all the same thing. When we got the original, project, it was Related was going to take care of 30% of the repairs, and NYCHA was going to take care of 70% of the repairs, which is what the majority of the residents complain about, and that they want, they want their apartments fixed, they want their sinks fixed, they want their doors to lock, all these things that you're just like, of course you do. So since we've been involved now, it has switched, and Related is taking care of 70% of the repairs, and NYCHA, which we know is a failure at fixing these things, because that's why we're here in the first place, is taking care of 30%. So we've already had an impact on.
I'm sure you would.
No, I'm just saying, like, I think this is what's happening. I don't want to say meantime, because meanwhile and all that stuff, but this is what's been happening while we are trying to get the information about, the bigger picture and stop the the as of right demolition, which I think would be really not smart for them to do. So.
Yeah, and then we're gonna wrap.
So I just want to say, Christine, I believe that when we did letters on it, we had a set of priorities at the front of the letter. These are the 6 things that we want as an outcome of this development. So we have stated them. We have stated what direction we want to go in. So I think to your point, Carrie, maybe because people are forgetting about that, is to resurface that letter.
Well, those letters are all in the Dropbox. We have actually, they're on the MCB4 website. It's a full NYCHA folder, and you can see everything.
The idea of putting it forward.
But put it forward, say, these are the priorities we set
Right.
a long time ago.
Yeah.
And one of them was repair work. I remember Greg making a big deal about this, and now repair work is at the forefront and it's getting resolved.
That's right.
Yeah, Marty?
That's right.
I wanna engage with Carrie on two things. The least important is the switch from 70-30 to 70-30, that the 70 that the Related is taken on are the 70% of the repairs in the bridge plan that Related is taken on. They have included in the development costs. So when the project goes through, the repairs that they're doing become part of the development costs on which they are.
But I don't think anyone expects they're doing the work for free, so.
No, and they're benefiting from that. They're gonna benefit.
But so are the residents, and that's what we care about. Like I'm not sure I get your
Marty,
point.
you can bring that back to committee.
I agree. This is a minor point. For
I'm not sure I understand that, Marty, but we can talk about that offline too.
But that's fine. I want to say that I really appreciated your leadership, Carrie, and what I'm going to say is not to at all argue with your leadership, because I'm going to back off after I say it. I came away a little bit differently than you did from that meeting. I thought it was pretty clear that that the development team was now saying that yes, it's going to take longer, and yes, it's going to be more expensive to rebuild than to repair. And I walked away from the meeting with them having fairly said that clearly, and in your statement, you weren't as sure about that as I walked away from it.
I appreciate that we have a different way of saying the same thing, but thank you.
Okay, we are gonna, I mean, I think we're gonna get more clarity and answers to these questions, and there are many variables which contribute to time and who's impacted, residents versus community, et cetera. And I think those timelines need to be more clearly outlined, so we're talking apples to apples. And I think that's in part what this last question is referencing, and that will happen at committee, at the committees. The last two things I wanted to mention, and then I'll turn it to Jesse for the district manager, district office report, is the EDC is engaging in a cruise terminal, a study of the cruise terminal. I know there's a lot of frustration because they had committed to bringing shore power, and now they're saying they need to study the whole terminal more broadly. That is unfortunate from this is my personal perspective, is that is unfortunate to delay shore power any longer. However, I also think that a comprehensive plan for the cruise terminal is needed. We've documented through the capstone study we engaged with 2 years ago, 2 years ago, just the need for accessibility, improved, public access signage, beautification, expanding the passageways for all of the users. And so I'm hopeful that this can get us to where we need to be in a more comprehensive way. There is currently a survey that's out. I think we sent it, the board sent it out. You should all take it if you go through that area or in any way you can get it. Check your email. I think you go.
It's also, we also put it on LinkedIn NYC.
Okay, so we used to take it and hopefully we can see, and I think there'll be there is another, they've not been very good at communicating the next dates for these engagement sessions they're doing, but there will be future engagement sessions where you can go in person and talk about the design and the hopes and the concerns. And so you should stay tuned for those or keep an eye out for those dates. Certainly I'll send them if I know them. Additionally, New York State DOT we had written letters on this also, but a study of 9A and obviously traversing the whole area. So it's not just our community board, but I know you guys wrote a letter that we passed at the last board meeting, but they had their first meeting and
Yes,
this
this week.
represented us.
We went.
Invigorating.
Right, that was a very good. Yes.
And I heard similarly from Community Board One that they felt it was very positive.
Right.
And I think maybe the cruise terminal folks could learn from the 9A folks, if I had to guess, because I don't know that they're approaching it with quite the same professionalism and scope. But those are the two things I wanted to be sure that folks know about, and just really go back to the earlier comment that we started with, is just like how much is happening in this area and being looked at, and it's very exciting and also a tremendous amount of work. And so I want to thank, as we close out before I transition
Can I,
to
before,
Justin. Yeah.
before just finish?
Yeah.
Can I raise our talk?
Oh,
We had a meeting with the government site and there was supposed to be some follow-up and
So I have, yeah.
like Rob was promising funding
Yeah.
from DOT, that argument.
So, the issue with the Intrepid site, so the Intrepid site, the state is looking to issue an RFP to develop that site. The parking, yes, the parking lot, thank you. The parking lot. The parking lot immediately across the highway from the Intrepid, looking to develop that site. And we had some calls with ESD about this. We have a call with our electeds. What Paul's specifically referring to is the cost. Part of this is that the funding that was used to buy the site has to be reimbursed. However, Jerry Nadler's office raised that there are ways to waive that repayment based on a number of, meeting certain criteria, including how the site will be used and if it's for affordable, et cetera, et cetera.
Reimbursed to the DOT.
Correct.
But it was,
Because now it's
it was
not
with federal,
transportation.
right, it was with federal funds,
Federal
so they
funds.
have to like follow all of these things. And so, what Paul's referring to is Rob Guggen was like really, interested and engaged and passionate, robust, on moving very quickly, because just like Port Authority Bus Terminal and the timeline with the federal government, that we need to move quickly. I have followed up with ESD a number of times on this, and Rob, I will be sure to put a call in before tomorrow, before I get on tomorrow to see where this is, but they say that they're working with Intergov folks to work this. The time is very short and the complexities of government shutdown and politics and all those things, but it is great to see when an elected really cares about something, or an office cares about something, how much they lean into it, and in this case, Rob, on behalf of Chair Napa, really saw this as a huge opportunity to improve the project and, yeah.
Reduce the height.
On the cruise terminal issue, you're all gonna get a lot more information on it because Leslie is committed to writing a letter for the next, full board meeting. I think she's gonna be writing a very comprehensive letter about the cruise terminal. Even, I hope it'll be in word.
Are we part of that discussion? Is your committee part of that discussion or is the board part of
Yeah,
that?
Leslie, yes,
Board.
Leslie and, yes, they participate, I know Leslie
They
participated.
presented to the committee.
Okay,
So
right.
there'll be a letter on that presentation.
Okay.
That presentation was not a wonderful presentation. Oh, yeah, we're not gonna do it in 2028. Sure, Powell. No,
But Leslie and
But that's
others
the letter.
from the committee are participating in that group, and it's an open group with other sessions, and people should feel free to participate as well. Okay. Leslie.
I'll be very quick. Because our January, full board is not until the 6th. I'm gonna say everybody can get their letters in on Monday, the 30th. Whoever has the letters to get in. Does that make sense? That gives you more time. We normally would be making them do it the 27th.
Like 3 more days.
The whole weekend,
This is a lot.
because we need to,
Wow.
we need to post by like literally the day, New Year's Day or the day after, and so that's why we're doing that, so let's do good, again, I'll send that out, in writing, but I just wanted to write that for you all. You will have your draft full board agenda and your draft committee schedules sent out to you guys tomorrow. Do not mistake if the full board agenda looks very unique at this point and think, oh, it's gonna be a quick meeting, because it's not. BLP has like 20-something items, and it's a lot of work for Nelly to get them all on there, and make sure they're all up and ready to go. But a lot of committees did not have letters coming out, so that's why it'll look so thin. But it'll get robust as we go. Please take a look at your committee schedules for January, make sure that they're, again, they're a snapshot, so they're generally accurate, and please take a look at other committees' schedules, so then you can say, oh, that might be something that my committee might be interested in, I'll reach out to that co-chair. Real quickly, January meeting changes, I already mentioned full board is gonna be on Monday, the 6th. Housing, Health and Human Services is been moved to the 7th, so that's Tuesday the 7th. And then CLU is gonna be on Tuesday the 21st. My knowledge, all other committees are meeting at their scheduled time. That is all I have to say.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jesse. Housing is moved to Tuesday?
Housing was scheduled to be on the 2nd of January, which when we tried to move full board to the 2nd of January, no one wanted to do it. So I thought, what's the point of trying to make it go, people from housing go do it, so that wasn't gonna work. So Joe and Maria, we had sent out a poll, and the 7th seemed to work for a majority of the members, and we had quorum for housing, so that's Tuesday the 7th.
Gotcha, and land use will be on the normal.
Your land use committee will be on the normal, CLU will be on Tuesday the 21st rather than that Monday, but that's because of the holiday.
Okay, on the top. Okay. That's it, folks. Thank you for sticking it out. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy new year.
Holidays, you have plans? Holidays, you got any plans?
No, just like.
What do you want? You want to chill?